ahead and watch it. Okay, so thank you for joining. My name is Greg Wiseman. I'm the principal of Renfroe Middle School, and I am joined by two hosts here. Kristen Carably, who is our instructional coach at Renfroe Middle School, and Dr. Julie McFadden, who is the director of math and science for City Schools of Decatur. I've known Kristen for a long time and colleagues for a number of years with Kristen. And I had the pleasure of having Julie as my son's fifth grade math teacher. There's a whole lot of math knowledge with Dr. McFadden. She's a pleasure to work with, and couldn't have been happier with her as my son's fifth grade math teacher. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Kristen.
Thank you. Hi. Yes, I'm Kristen Carably, and Julie and I will be taking turns talking today, teaching everyone about the math pathways at Renfroe and at the high school so that you can make an informed decision when it's time to make a decision about your child and whether or not to, I agree, she's amazing, to pursue accelerated math or double acceleration. Do we have any teachers that have logged on? Sometimes Mr. Stroy, our department chair, will join us. I don't think he's going to this time. If you have questions as we're going, you've got a couple of options. You are welcome to click the raise hand feature, and Greg or Julie will, let me know, and you can say your question then. I won't be able to see you because I'll have the presentation going. Or you can shoot an email directly to Dr. McFadden. Keep in mind when you say a question out loud, which you're welcome to, you will be on screen, and this is being recorded and will be posted on our website. So if you don't want yourself on our website asking questions, you might want to turn off your camera or just shoot your question to Dr. McFadden. So, or put it in the chat. So,
or you could leave your camera on and really ham it up. And
make it. This could be a big party for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. By the end of our presentation today, this diagram will make sense to you, which probably is hard to believe right now, but it's true. It's going to be way simpler once we talk through what things look like at each grade level. If you lean in, you'll notice at the top of this flow chart, you're going to see where it says inside that box, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and it goes all the way across to senior year, 12th grade. And so you're sort of reading this flow chart from left to right, from 6th grade through 12th, okay? And we're going to be starting together by looking at what a traditional pathway looks like for students. Any school in Georgia is going to offer this pathway right here, and it's where the typical student will go. And what it has is students taking 6th grade math in 6th grade and 8th grade math in 8th grade. And then when they get to the high school in 9th grade, they start by taking Algebra 1. They move to geometry as a 10th grader. They go to Algebra 2 as an 11th grader. And then as a 12th grader, CCGPS stands for Common Core Georgia Performance Standards, and they take the pre-calculus course. All right. So students that are, somewhat average generally fall into this pathway. All right. At Renfroe and Decatur High School, there's a pathway that we call accelerated mathematics. And in this option, students take regular 6th, 7th, and 8th grade maths. And in those classrooms, the instruction is differentiated for students that are above grade level to some degree, below grade level to some degree. Their needs are generally met in that regular classroom. But when they move to the high school level, then they are offered the opportunity to accelerate. In other words, go faster. So these accelerated students, upon entering high school, actually take a year and a half of math in the 9th grade. So they're taking that regular Algebra 1 class, and then the first half of 10th grade math, which is geometry. We call it geometry A. When they enter the 10th grade, they finish that geometry and then take algebra 2. So now they've taken 9th, 10th, and 11th grade math. They've worked through the 11th grade. And then they have a couple of options from there. They have the option of moving more quickly up to that calculus level, but they can also slow down a little bit, take the pre-calculus, move over to AP statistics. There's just a few different options there. So they can kind of go faster or keep it at a slower pace, just depending on how they're achieving, what their interests turn out to be now that they're a little older. And that pathway, the traditional accelerated math pathway, where 8th graders are identified and then they go into 9th, they're identified using that MAP score and grades. All right. So this is automatically done for all of our 8th graders, and the high school screens them all by looking at their MAP scores. And they're looking at kids with the 70th or 80th percentile in MAP. All right. And as you can see towards the bottom, kids at that 70th percentile, it's important that they've got grades of 5 or higher, just to make sure they're ready for the level of rigor for accelerating a little bit. Okay. So that is the regular accelerated pathway. Now we're going to talk about what we refer to as double acceleration. And with double acceleration, we're looking at kids skipping a full year of math in middle school and accelerating the way this accelerated crew did. So that's where we bring in that bottom row. So here, students are invited to participate with qualifying scores. And to participate, that means that they're skipping a full year of math. So our 7th graders don't go to 7th grade math. Instead, as a 7th grader, they report to an 8th grade math class with an 8th grade math teacher, and they do 8th grade math that year. They prepare by doing work over the summer that we assign, and it's 7th grade math content to make sure that they're ready for that 8th grade math. The other option is that kids take regular 6th grade math, regular 7th grade math, and accelerate at the end of 7th grade, again, with qualifying scores. And they're going to skip 8th grade math and enter that accelerated pathway as an 8th grader, which means as an 8th grader, they're taking 9th grade math and that first half of 10th at the middle school. Okay. Then they come over to the high school and they're taking the second half of geometry, algebra 2 as a freshman. They take AP statistics as a sophomore. And then they are put into the 2-year pre-calculus calculus course. And so one notable difference between what the accelerated students receive versus the double accelerated students, double accelerated kids are compelled to enter that calculus track versus, and they're automatically in that statistics, versus the kids who are the regular acceleration. They can choose AP statistics, but it's not necessarily a part of that pathway. And they can choose calculus, but it's not necessarily required. So to qualify for double acceleration, our rising 7th graders, so they're currently 6th graders, have to have either a 261 MAP score for math and a qualifying COGAT score above the 98th percentile, or take path B, which has kids getting the 255 for the math score, 90th percentile or higher with the COGAT, final effort score of 4, final grade of 6 or 7. The student needs 3 out of those 4 items. Okay. These numbers, by the way they were, the way they came up with them was by looking at students over the course of several years that are in AP statistics and in those calculus classes, and looking at the students that were passing and doing well, where they scored as younger people, just to make sure that we aren't teeing kids up for a pathway that's kind of out of their reach, and that's going to be a problem that they're going to struggle too much with. And then here are scores for rising eighth graders for double acceleration. They need the 270 and the 98th percentile for COGAT, or 3 out of 4 of the following: the MAP of 260, 90th percentile for COGAT, final effort score of 4, final grade of 6 or 7. Of course, if you have any questions, you can shoot them to Dr. McFadden, and she'll be checking her email to read them out to us, or feel free to raise your hand. Do we have any questions yet, Julie?
I don't have any in my inbox as of yet, and I don't see any in the chat box yet either.
So I'm going to now shift to Julie, and she's going to talk a little bit about some changes that are coming down the line.
Yes, so thanks, Kristen. And Mr. Robinson, you are a wonderful Tybee chaperone. So I also had the privilege of teaching Mr. Robinson's older daughter when she was in 5th grade. So what I wanted to make you aware of is some decisions you're making about your students right now. There are some changes coming from the state in the next couple of years. Some of you may or may not have heard, back before COVID, our governor called for a revision and revisitation of our math and ELA standards. The revision of those math standards has taken place, and we do have approved new Georgia math standards. That approval came last school year, and initially we were thinking that they would be implemented in the 22-23 school year, so next school year. But due to everything else that has happened over the last 2 years, the state, after lots of conversations, decided to slow down that implementation process. So you can see with this timeline that we have some new Georgia math standards that the teachers are going to be learning about next year, and they'll be implemented in the 23-24 school year. So not next school year for your children, but the following school year. One of the things that it is going to impact is some of the trajectories for acceleration. Kristen, will you slide to the next slide? Thanks. So you're going to notice this is a draft from a publication from the DOE, and you're going to notice, actually, I don't know if you can see it because it's so small, but what you will notice, it looks very much like the trajectory Kristen was just sharing with you. But if you look closely, what the state is recommending with the rollout of the new pathways is that we will no longer, as a state, have condensed classes, that condensed course of Algebra 1, Geometry A, Geometry B, Algebra 2, where children are taking 3 years of mathematics in 2 academic years. Instead, the recommendation from the state is to slow down some of those foundational courses, the Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. But what that would look like is still opening up opportunities for students to accelerate at different points. The first decision point would come in the 23-24 school year after the 7th grade year. And so for those children that are rising 7th graders that take that 8th grade course next year, the recommendation is that they go into that, in that following 8th grade year, they would take a full year of Algebra 1 as opposed to that condensed Algebra 1 and Geometry course, and then have a full year of Geometry in 9th grade. And so that's just something I want you to be aware of, so that it's not brand new to you next year. There's going to also be a lot of information. I'm going to try to have several different district-wide family I guess we call these parent chats, to kind of talk through the process of what those new Georgia standards look like. But I thought it was important to at least put that in the back of your minds as you're thinking about making decisions about trajectories for your children here in CSD and their mathematical opportunities. Kristen, was there anything else I left off?
No, I think so. Okay. Is it true if I say that the students with current 6th graders are the first ones that this might affect?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have more content. there is a place on our school website under curriculum and instruction at the Renfroe website where I've posted a PDF that has all of these criteria. It also has, what are those things called that you take the picture of, Julie? It has a link to the
A
high
QR code.
QR
Yep.
code. Thank you.
Yep.
A link to the high school website, and it has basically this presentation but broken down a little more cleanly. All the information you're going to need. If you have questions about whether your child qualifies, you are welcome to get in touch with me or Julie, and we can help you kind of just process through what feels like a good fit for your child, whether they have the scores to qualify, etc.
So Kristen, while you've got that slide up, this is a great time for this question that did come in. If a kid gets into a double accelerated math this year and after trying it decides she doesn't want to be in it, can she get out later?
So that's tough because the only place to go out is what we've done already. Right. So I'm assuming they're asking, like, if maybe she has a rising 7th grader and she takes 8th grade math, and midway through 8th grade math, she worries. It's happened before. We never are 100% closed when it comes to making decisions. If it's the right decision for your child, of course we would do that. But it's very rare, and it's pretty hard on the child.
I've got just the flow chart on the screen. It's kind of hard to see some of the words with some of the little squiggly lines there. So if you could maybe talk about what some of those little lines going from the one path to the other path might mean.
For instance, Algebra 1 going to accelerated.
Yeah.
Julie, do you feel comfortable addressing
Sure.
that?
Yeah, no, I sure do. If you take a look, what I do like about City Schools of Decatur's math trajectory, though it looks a little confusing, there are a lot of opportunities for students to have their needs met. So to address that question, as Kristen said, it's very rare that students decelerate once they start along that accelerated pathway. But if a student is struggling, then there are opportunities to kind of off ramp at different places. It does mean that they may have to repeat a section of a course that they've already taken. But as you can see, let's say a child takes Algebra 1 and Geometry A in that 8th grade year, really struggles there. It might be the best next course for them to take a full year of geometry so that they can really get those foundational geometry pieces. And so there are prerequisites for each of those high school courses. But once a student is on that path, very seldomly do they decelerate, though there are times. One of the things that I wanted to point out, the Algebra 1 little squiggly pathway, we have a handful of students that decide not to accelerate as 9th graders, but then really do very well in Algebra 1. And they decide, you know what, I feel like I'm ready for an extra challenge. And we have a handful of kids that over the summer, through resources like Georgia Virtual Academy, may take some missing prerequisites. So they would need that Geometry A course, and Georgia Virtual does offer that. So they might take that Geometry A course over the summer and then get onto that accelerated Geometry B Algebra 2 course. You're going to notice a circle around that accelerated Geometry B Algebra 2, I guess that's an oval, and the AP Stats in the 10th grade year. We have a handful of students that really want that AP Stats course on their transcript and want the opportunity to take that AP Stats exam. And so they can take that AP Stats course concurrently with the Algebra B and Geometry B and Algebra 2 course. And so what you see with all of those squigglies and lines is that there are endless possibilities for the mathematics that your students feel ready to engage in. And there are, unlike some other districts where once the student is on a pathway, that's their pathway, or if a student is not selected, they're never going to have the opportunity. There are lots of different opportunities for students to accelerate if they feel that that's the best next course for them.
There's a question in the chat. What will the AP course progression be for a 6th grader who accelerates next year given the state curriculum changes?
So that is a great question that we're actually working with our high school here in Decatur and also some state representatives. You're going to notice in that draft trajectory, the AP courses nor the IB courses are yet there because, again, that's a draft of the recommendations. But that's work we still have to do is map those AP courses and IB courses into the state suggested trajectory. I don't have a definitive answer right now for you. But knowing Decatur, they will be in there.
I was wondering if maybe Kristen or Julie, one of you could talk a little bit about like what is that like those AP Calc classes that you would be taking 12th senior year like? Is that like, if you're pretty decent at math, is that something you should be taking, or do you have to be like a complete math like how difficult are those classes? And like, what's like, when you start getting into that track, like, and you end up senior year with that class, what is that like?
Do you want me to answer that question?
You can answer the official answer, sure.
Okay. Well, it's the official answer, but I've also had a lot of conversations with some of the teachers at the high school this year that teach those courses. And so it is a really rigorous course, especially when you're getting into those AP Calc BC courses. It's highly rigorous. It's, as Kristen was saying, it's not your typical trajectory. Though here in Decatur, we have a lot of students that do take those calculus courses in their senior year, but they are highly, highly rigorous. And students that don't have that strong foundation in the Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 courses really, really struggle in the AP Calc courses.
And then there's a follow-up question, Julie. Well, it's related. How do the junior and senior math classes work with the IB program?
So their IB courses are 2-year courses, and you're going to notice that there are some different IB courses. There are the IBSL applications, which is really taking that Algebra 2. So I'm looking at that teal course in the 11th grade year that looks like a little teardrop. It says SL Applications Algebra 2. It takes that Algebra 2 content and weaves in those IB concepts. And so they're learning through the lens of IB, and then it ends with that IBSL applications, which is really the pre-calculus content, but it's through that lens of IB. So when we look at our IBSL analysis and IBHL applications, we're looking at pre-calculus content to prepare students for those calculus courses that weave in those IB concepts, the required IB content. So the students can take an AP Calc course if they are not in the IBDP program, and they can end with that AP Calc exam. Most of our students that are enrolled in the AP Calculus courses are also enrolled as in the IBDP program. And you're going to find out so much more information about that as you head over to the high school. And if you want to know more, the QR code that Kristen was just sharing with you, and I can even put the link in here, the high school teachers have done a phenomenal job of talking through each course and what concepts are taught in each of those courses. I'm just checking my email real quick. I have one other. Let me see if we answered it. So one question was about, is it possible for an 8th grader that wasn't already accelerated to enter 9th grade on the double accelerated pathway, or to play catch up somehow on that path? And the answer is absolutely. For your individual child, if you want to shoot Kristen or myself an email, we can talk to you about some of the options that you might have if you have a current 8th grader that doesn't look like they're going to enter on that accelerated track, and what some possible options are. If your child has some desire to end in some of those AP Calc courses, there are definitely opportunities to get there. And that's it for the emails I see in my inbox.
All right. We're going to do this again on Monday. So if you think of some questions and you'd really rather have, conversation in the meeting, come back Monday. Otherwise, this will be recorded on the website. So you'll refer back to this or, watch it a second time, check your understanding. But that's all we've got. Thanks for coming out today. And don't hesitate to email us if you have more questions.
Yeah, and I'm going to put that link to the Decatur High School QR code in the chat. It's just taking me a minute to pull it up.
We have a raised hand. Megan, go ahead.
Hi. We're at dinner. So I have a sixth grader, and he did not score it kind of anywhere near the 265 for, and he is taking the March map, but his score was average and a lot lower. So I guess my question is, are the scores being adjusted at all for COVID